Composer's notes. The inspiration for this composition was born on the 20th day of January in the year 2009. Witnessed on that day was the inauguration of the first African-American president of the United States of America. President Barack Hussein Obama achieved what a few short years previous seemed impossible. By running a campaign that steadily drew more and more supporters, President Obama achieved his presidential dream and in the process changed history forever. The composition, Inauguration 09, Dare to Dream, is separated into 5 movements. Each movement represents a time period within the quest for equal civil rights among all races of humanity. Each movement contains the sound of a triangle and tambourine. The triangle symbolizes the struggle of the slaves who fought for the freedoms and equalities that we strive for today. We should remember them and think of their struggle when the triangle is heard. The tambourine maintains a traditional African element throughout each piece. At times, these instruments are very prevalent, and sometimes they are more subdued. The representational message is the same throughout. Movement 1, Salvation, Humiliation. This movement starts, in African tradition, with wooden xylophone instrument sounds. The movement later opens up to more westernized orchestral instruments. These Western instruments represent the triangular trade system that was initiated as far back as the late 1500s. Africans were taken from their homeland and sold off to slave owners or masters, as they were known in different parts of Europe and the Americas. Most were separated from their families and never reunited again. This is where this composition begins in the plight for human equality. Movement 2, Frustration, Degradation. This movement celebrates the life of Harriet Tubman. Miss Tubman was the leader in the Underground Railroad movement of the mid-1800s. Countless slaves sought freedom to the northern United States and even into Canada under her leadership. She was a strong woman who refused to accept her freedom under the pretense that others could not have theirs. The Underground Railroad was a system of secret pathways which in reality had very little to do with a real railway system. In contrast to that, I chose to compose this movement in honor of the slaves' journey north, using the idea of a train to depict the Underground Railroad concept. While listening, one should discover the sound of the train whistle and the same train chugging along the track. Movement 3, Emancipation Proclamation. This movement centers around the historical document signed by then-President Abraham Lincoln on January 1, 1863. One should listen to the snare drum that begins the piece. The drum states the year in which this proclamation was signed. The rhythmic figure starts with 1 snare hit, which is followed by 8 hits, followed by 6 hits, and finishes with 3 hits, thus 1, 8, 6, 3. Or 1863. This figure repeats throughout the entire movement and creates a unique polyrhythmic effect within the overall piece. Movement 4, Segregation Determination. This piece moves us into the civil rights movement of visionary preacher Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. One should listen to this movement and envision that they are present in the mid-1960s. On July 2, 1964, then-President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Bill forbidding segregation in the United States of America. Once segregated schools, establishments, and modes of transportation were now being desegregated. This desegregating of society changed the course of history forever, and Dr. King was marching to live that dream during this time period. The underlying message and subtitle of the piece is heard in this movement. The phrase, "Dare to Dream," is a message that I do not feel anyone should ever forget. Movement 5, Jubilation Obligation. This movement breathes new life into the possibility for a world with no racial conflict or divide. The fact that humanity has moved from the United States Constitution once reading that African Americans were 3/5 of a person to an African American becoming president shows how far humanity has come. The title contains the word obligation, because we are all responsible for our actions towards our brothers and sisters in making the world a better place. This message of helping out in society was always one that Dr. King wanted us to remember. The piece ends steeped in the sounds of the Southern Baptist Gospel Church. I hope you enjoy Inauguration 09 and promise me that you will always dare to dream. I'm Robert Hrabluk, composer and Nordale Band Director.